Good morning everyone, welcome to my channel. So here we go again. We have our new prompt for the Roxy Creations Journal of Stitchery series, and of course we're up to number 6. Oh my goodness. So the third prompt, title page was the first, spring bulb was the next one, and today I'm working on nest. And of course I'm doing 2 journals, of course, just like double the workload. An Edith Holden tribute in a concertina style, and also a nature journal that is themed to my backyard, which leads down to a saltwater lake and the ocean. Today I'm going to just focus on the Edith one. I haven't really put a lot of thought into the other one. It is sitting just off camera there, and I'll probably show you a bit of a rough, pile of stuff that got thrown towards that journal. Talk about everything falling out of the cupboard. When you go hunting for, I guess, direction or a colour palette or elements you may use, that's what's happened. The place is just oozing with stuff. But this one came together really easily. So I'm going to start with Edith. Now, the page that caught my eye was this page. These here are crab apple blossoms. So that sort of put the pinks into my mind, and the nest would be in amongst it. I do like the nest that has a lot of foliage around it as well. I'm not sure if it's even in this book. I'm sure you've seen it on many other, that one there. Sarah showed it. I like that idea, which sort of made me think, okay, the nest building bit, I think myself, is the simple bit. It's just stitches and fibres and find something to be eggs. So I'll go through that in a moment. The foliage is where my head sort of went, and then these pink blossoms. So that's sort of how I pulled together my, I guess, colour palette and mood board in my mind. Then I went to my scrapbook paper, which I've done previously for the hyacinths. Hang on one moment. Just grabbing the journal now. This caught my eye. Now, these blossoms here sort of feel like cherry blossoms to me, but there are little berries in there. So whether they're crabtree blossoms, cherry blossoms, I don't know. It's not my focus, but the colour palette is, and the stick-like structure around said nest. So then I went to my journal just to refresh the colours that are drifting through this, and I'm bright with a bit of a subdued background. Now, in my last video, I worked some daffodils into this front page because I had this one little daffodil image, and a few of you commented at the end of that video that it looked very white compared to this. Well, it did. So after I finished doing all my stitching, I went back in with some tea and a paintbrush and just started drizzling in some tea just to age it back and push it back into this sort of colour palette. So that was, I guess, the solution to bringing a doily that is white into a palette that is on calico. Like this is all calico. So what I've done this time is I have, let me just move that out of the way. I found a doily I liked, because that was the other thing I wanted to do with Edith, is include a lot of embroidery, unfinished embroideries like doilies themselves, laces, everything I could imagine that a lady from that era would have around her, and then the beautiful images that she sketched, whether they be pieces of fabric with flowers on them or embroideries sort of coming together. So that's sort of, I guess, the best way to describe it. So I have found this white, but now off-white, tea-dyed. So that's what I did first thing this morning. I got my doily, dunked it in some tea. I did a couple other little doilies at the same time, and my tea's still sitting over on my bench. So I might even, dodge back and do a little bit more dyeing. But I don't want it too brown. I want it to sort of bring in these tones as well. sort of with the pops of colour. So that's going to be my base. And as you can see, when I walked up to my journal, that's my next page is technically here. I just felt like I needed more space. I just couldn't see how I was going to get everything into here. So probably could if I tried, but I think, so I got myself a piece of wadding. I think what did it for me was I found this doily and it comes so close to fitting. It hangs off the bottom a little bit. So I do have to decide whether I let it hang off the bottom. I'm not a fan of that because when it sits in a bookshelf, let me come up a little bit, right up on you. When it hangs on a bookshelf, you've got this lace that's sort of sliding along a bookshelf. If it sits, you know, it's not too much of an issue, but I'm tending towards turning that up. I don't want to cut it off. I want to keep it. My wadding I've put in place because not only does it give it a bit of a background, gives me something to stitch into. I'm not going to put calico under like I would normally because it's just another layer I don't think I need. So that's the plan. There's my background. I then started thinking about these birds. And because the prompt is nest, for this journal, I want to focus on the nest, but I don't really want to have to focus too much on the bird yet. I'd rather, well, I don't know, maybe I will. No, I won't, because I found this. This is a napkin I pulled out on day one, and my plan is to pull out this cluster of birds and attach it with my glue into this corner. And I'll fussy cut around it so it's like in the distance, in the background. They're just in the shrubbery. Now I happen to have a little nest. If you've been following me for a while, I've been working on my winter panel with the bird, and I plan to put a nest under this little guy once I get all of this stitching done. So I sort of have a little nest that I could sort of play with a little bit, which brings me to what I'm going to use for my nest. So I'm going to have to recreate this because this little nest belongs to that guy. So in the meantime, gives me an idea of scale. This is just twine where I just looped it in my fingers like that. Really simple to get the base of the nest, and then tied it off. I think I even used a little bit of twine. I may not have. I might have then gone straight to eyelash yarn and just did this. So if you're not keen on stitching your nest, you can easily create a nest out of fibres. Now for my Edith project, that's what I use for this. And I think I just twisted that around there to help secure it. Then I went back with my scissors and I cut all of those loops so they were a little bit more like a stick. For Edith, I'm going to go a little bit further, and I pulled out a cream eyelash yarn and I pulled out some feather yarn just to start building up maybe some feathery elements. I know around the yard here, I've got so many birds that are fossicking for bits and pieces for their nests, being spring is just around the corner for us in Australia. And Bandit and Pepper the other day had a wash from a doggy wash lady, and on the driveway to the side where it meets the grass, fur had piled up, and I was like, oh, should I pick it up? It looks messy, but I kept sort of feeling like I should leave it there because I've been watching all these birds gathering things. And I swear, within 3 days, it was all gone. It has just disappeared. And I was talking to the dog wash lady about it, and she said, yeah, leave it, because look, she's seen kookaburras pick it up to line the inside of their nests. Their nests are usually in logs and hollowed out structures. Like I've had kookaburras in Brisbane nest in a termite nest that was a termite thing that was on the side of a gum tree. they dug a hole in it, and for I think about 3 years they had their babies in there until we had a big storm. It got very wet and it cracked and fell. So yeah, I'm watching all sorts of birds picking up bits and pieces. So Pepper and Bandit better be careful, because they're going to have birds on their back stealing bits of them. So I'm thinking for the Edith of doing the same sort of nest. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do for eggs? So I went looking. So I'm sort of jumping ahead here, but I figured this is just me, you know, throwing heaps of ideas out. Then I can go ahead and, you know, stitch. I might just pause the video because I can hear my husband's out of bed now. So he's going to start making something for brekkie. So I just want to shut a few doors. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. So where was I? Eggs. So you've got the idea of how I'm going to create my nest for my page or my spread. What I did with the egg idea is I went looking for shank buttons. And I've chosen ones that are like a polished pearl. And I thought what I could do is just nestle them in there, that they're just peeking out. So, you know, at a glance, you're just seeing that top edge of the eggs. So that's my plan for the eggs. Some shank pearly buttons. You could use any button if you don't have pearl ones, polished pearl ones, or shell buttons. But my suggestion would be a shank, so that you can sort of just sit them, you know, in the top. I better not lose this little nest because he belongs to this little bird. So put him to one side. I've got all my elements ready for when I want to make my actual nest. So put them to one side. But first I need to sort out this background and how much stitching is going to go into the background. That's the first step. So I've got my inspiration here, my colour palette. I don't think I'm going to have the room to incorporate that image into this. We'll see how we go, but I don't think so. Like I did with that, I think I'm going to be a little bit more free form, but that's where I'm heading with it, and it sort of blends with the Edith page as well. What else did I want to just go through briefly with you before we get started? I think that was about it. So I can put my journal aside. I still have up my sleeve that background. Like it would have worked. I could have brought birds in and nest, but we'll save that. We'll save that. So let's pop my journal away. Now, here's my base. Let's see where this is going to go. Technically, I think I need to stitch this down. Or do I do it after I get my birds on? The other thing I have sitting here are elements that I can use to build up the tree around the nest. I have that I found in my scrap bucket. I know there's more of that fabric somewhere, so I'm going down the idea of a bush rose, like a cottage rose. Is that what they call them? The shrubs that have roses in them, not a classic rose. I found these two little embroideries, and I thought maybe they could be fussy cut out and added to the whole shrubbery that this little nest is in. I found this because I want to include some unfinished embroideries, and I don't mind that. Could be the start of something, and maybe the nest sits into the side of it. You see where I'm going with this? So I'm hoping then I can sort of stitch into those leaves. I can bring additional shrubbery in, and then the birds. You see where I'm heading with it? Then I found that, which is in the theme of the roses, and cherry blossom pink, crabapple pinks, those sorts of things. I then found that, and I really liked not only the floral element, but I liked these leaves. which might help me if I thought maybe stiffen them. If I iron them onto some iron-on Violene, then they will be stiff, and I can, like that little piece there, iron it onto something, and then it potentially could sit three-dimensionally. Remember, I'm trying to sort of build dimension as well. Where's this image of the nest here? See how they're coming over it? So I think I need a heap of leaves that are stiff, that can be tacked down but three-dimensional. So I'm thinking along those lines. Thought that might be good. And then as we get closer to the nest and in the foreground, I spotted those. This is a spotlight fabric. I think both of these are. I thought, well, some of those, see these? They might be good right down in the corner. So that's where I'm heading with it, guys. So I guess this video is just getting out of my head my concept, which might help you guys get your thoughts together. So there's all my bits that will build up through, and the birds technically are secondary, but they need to be dealt with first. So let's just cut out. There's still a little bit of dampness. I might use, what am I doing? I might use my water stick straight up. So this is what I was looking for when I was playing with napkins in my work. I wanted, get rid of the backgrounds. Hang on, slow down. Get rid of, my goodness, it's like I've got so many ideas in my head that I'm like, my head's racing. Oh, then I just tore that. Fingernail caught it. That will matter, I think. I'm going to go to another corner. Instead of using my fingernail, use a tool to flatten those little lumpy bits around the side, which makes it easy to separate. It's possible I will come back into that bird and stitch, but I'm sort of thinking that the nest is it, and the flowers and the leaves, and the bird is just like a printed piece of fabric sitting in the background, which just happens to be this product. That's my theory, but you know how it is. You sometimes can't help yourself, and before you know it, you are stitching into something you didn't think you were going to stitch. All right. So here's our little one. I think I'll go at a bit of an angle for now. So there's water in here. If you don't have one of these, just grab a paintbrush. Damp paintbrush will do the trick. So the water's coming down. For the life of me, I could not find this the other day when I was looking for the tool. But today I walked straight up to the very same cup I was looking in, and there it was. I guess the question is, next, we're definitely going to turn the lace up, are we? Yes, we are. I like the idea that I can disappear in behind there. How much of that do we want to get rid of is the next question. Do we want to thin it out because I'm going to come back through here with flowers? Wouldn't mind getting rid of a lot of this apricot. That's not really my palette. I love that stick. I love them. I like the writing. Where's my nest? Our pseudo nest, our borrowed nest. Light fussy cut. this out. Can you hear the brain thinking? The cogs turning. I'll just do a rough cut for now. I saw some gorgeous incompleted embroideries with birds on them about a week ago, and I was so tempted to buy them, and I was like, I don't need them. And I just had a feeling this prompt was coming because, you know, it's like a classic image within the Edith world. So I think that's why I was sort of looking at unfinished embroideries. I think that's going to come down into that corner. So where is my nest going to go? I think he's going to go into here. No, see, I've got a fold in the page there. Okay, girl, keep that in the back of your mind. Let's assume that that is probably cut down and merged in there as well, plus every other bit of fabric I've got. See, I really want to go to the centre, which is a problem with the fold. Which made me think maybe he goes over here and we have some small imagery coming in. And then this larger imagery, but it'll make it hard to do three-dimensional leaves. So the nest needs to be over here. Oh, I like that. Give the nest the whole page. That's what we're going to do. Then all of this comes in underneath and around and over the top of it and stuck in up here. Get the general gist. All of that gets mushed in there, and then as this builds, we slowly bring elements across to blend this in, is I think how it's going to go. All right, got a plan? We've got a plan. So I think I'm going to actually glue all of that down. Because let me just go back to this piece that I did for the iris. This was really easy to stitch into. It was not an issue whatsoever. So I think I'm going to take advantage of this artwork instead of eliminating it and use it. And there's potential to, no, there's not. Don't say that out aloud because I only want these two birds. I was going to say there's potential to bring another one of him in. But I think I'll run out of room because I want to have this as a feature. Yeah, okay. We have a plan, guys. We're going to, no, we're going to stitch down. Back it up. Back it up. That's definitely going there. But what we need to do is invisible stitch these layers together. We might as well do it now so it's way back in the work. Does that all make sense? You'd be thinking, gosh, does this girl know where she's heading for this? Not really. We're just playing it by ear. But I think you got the general gist of it. So my homework will be to stitch the background down, which I'll probably get most of that done now. Doesn't need to be heaps and heaps of stitches as long as it's one. Let's quickly get that done. I think there was like 10 minutes film before I hopped up to shut all the doors. It's only 20 minutes roughly in. So I'll leave that flap for now. Now my sea journal, I'm not as set yet on a concept. The only thing I found two things. They don't really go together. So that's my challenge, I guess, if I'm going to use them. I need to pull it together. Is I found some Tim Holtz fabric with a nest, which so suits that little journal. I found that, which also suits the little journal. And I found some eggs, which are like way too big, but maybe there's potential to do something with those. So that's the piece of fabric that I've been hoarding, this Tim Holtz range of fabrics for yonks. So I just cut it off, threw the chunk back in the cupboard and said, that's it, you are going to use that in your sea journal. I've also got my favourite fabric, which I've used these guys so many times. He's on my denim jacket. He just blends, so whether one of these little fellows joins it, I don't know. I may not even bring a bird into that one because it's all about a nest. And then I found this fabric. So it's like little nests that could be, you know, like, sort of feels more like Edith. Let me grab my Edith. Got sidetracked again. It's like the sampler idea of the sketching. So whether some little nests come in somewhere, I just don't know. That's an awful lot of things to fit on a page. And the other piece I found, and I was like, oh my goodness, is him. Now we have a lot of wrens, willy wagtails, all these little guys with these big tails. And I saw him and I was like, oh, look at you. But he's out of proportion to the nest. So I think I'll just hang on to him and he might be a bird on another page. There's heaps of birds on this fabric. It's just, see, I've got sidetracked. Look at that. I wish I had found that when I did the teacup prompt with Susanna Vintage Blend Studio. Like, how gorgeous is that? Look at these guys, little wrens. We have these guys. I love the prickles. Like, it's just the most beautiful fabric. Now, you guys will be saying, who is it? Flowers and Feathers. It's fairly recent. Like, I'm sure I've only bought this in the last 12 months. Maybe it's 2 years. But it's watercolour. Look at those. Imagine these all stitched. It's a project in itself. Just gorgeous. Imagine it all thread painted. Anyway, the little guy down that bottom corner, let me get back to him. He, I think, is very much the world I'm living in. I can see that in my sea journal at some point. So it's now joined the pile of fabrics on the ocean journal. Oh, goodness me. New prompt. What can you say? There's a nest that belongs to a bird over there. For goodness sakes, there's bits everywhere here. So if I just get a couple stitches down, then we can get that napkin into position and I can get it drying. And then I might just fussy cut out some elements. Or I should find some iron-on. Need a sneaky knot that's about to come unthreaded. Just a little knot to hold my needle. I'm over unthreaded needles falling out. So it won't take long to get this sorted. So it's a great prompt. Nests are great because they're so three-dimensional, and it's fun to try and achieve that with fabrics and fibres. That's why I've got these leaves in my mind. I feel like I've done heaps of nests in my time. but I've never three-dimensionally added leaves. So that's what caught my attention. The birds are secondary to it, but to have some in the background looking down at the nest is a bonus, hence that direction of using the napkin. But that's Sea Journal, my backyard journal. Not sure yet. Maybe I'll stitch into the nest a lot more like Rachel's doing. She's got a beautiful image that she'll just keep layering in lots of stitch. I'm sort of tempted to do that, where this one is going to be, you know, fibres and things. It's going to be fun to see all of the photographs of everyone's work pop up on their Facebook page. If you're not a part of the Facebook page, there'll be a link on Sarah and Rachel's video. Go over and join, because, oh my goodness, the work that comes out there, there's thousands of people involved. And it's just so neat to see everyone's interpretation of these prompts. It's really, really cool. It's probably one of the first pages I go to every morning, just to have a little look to see what everyone's done. So I did even have an idea of smooshing this up as well. So I like that idea too. This is how my pages get bulky, and then my spines get under pressure in my journals. I might do that, smoosh that lace up. I guess if the page develops into quite a thick dimensional thing, I don't know what I'm going to do then. Just put it in a frame and don't put it in the journal. I don't know. These things could happen. I don't want to inhibit myself by worrying about a spine at the end of the day too. You know, maybe the Tim Holtz fabric that I was showing you, maybe an element from that ends up in the journal. I don't know. Who knows, guys? Either way, I need to get this 2-page spread out of my head. And that might then allow my mind to come back into a smaller space. I don't know. Okay. Just going to use this last little bit of thread to secure that top corner. It won't be going anywhere. So for me, it's Thursday and I have nothing planned, absolutely nothing, and it's great. There has just been so much going on with tradesmen coming and going, and I know the air conditioning wasn't working last night. We went to put a bit of warmth into the house and nothing turned on. So there's our challenge for today, to find out what the hang has happened. Why have we got a house that is what? We got it in October last year and the air conditioning is already on the blink. Not happy. And there just so happened to be electricians here yesterday mucking around with the hot water system, because the builder's been back to replace the hot water system. When they put it on the property, you'd think that hot water system had fallen off the back of a truck. It was dented and bumped and chipped, and it looked like one side had been hit by a car. It was shocking. And they installed it. We came up to check on the property as we're in the building phase then, and we're like, oh, what did we get? A second-hand beaten up hot water system? So the supervisor came out and he took one look at it and said, what the? It honestly looks like it's fallen over in the factory and been damaged and then packaged and sent. So it's come from China like that. You just looked at, because the packaging was perfect. So this thing's copped a beating in the factory. So the supervisor said, oh, we'll get you another one. So it's taken, months and months. And finally, the new one's arrived. So we got a call to say, your system's arrived. It's been sitting in our garage for about 3 weeks. And then we got a call to say, plumber and electrician are on their way to swap out the old one, put the new one in. So I'm in my craft room stitching, and I see them all walk around. Then I see our old beaten up one go past the window, and I'm thinking, more beauty. Then I see the new one in its box go past the window, and then probably about half an hour later, I see one in a box go back past the window, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, the old girl was taken out. That box they're taking doesn't look like an empty packaging. It looks like a heavy. So then they're all gone. And I went out to see where my husband was, and he was fiddling around with taps, and he goes, he said, we've got a problem, we don't have water. And I said, so the new system doesn't work. And he says, no, we don't have a new system. The hot water system that they sent us to replace the original was half the size. So the poor plumbers and the electrician have pulled out the old one, disconnected it, taken it around to their truck, got the box with the new one, unwrapped it, and they're all standing there, and you've got a hot water system that's above your head in height versus a hot water system that comes to your shoulders. It was 2 different literages. So, yeah. So they had to repackage the little one, take it back to our garage, ring the supervisor and say, we've got the wrong system. I tell you. And then they reconnected the old beaten up one until a replacement can be sought and brought out. So that's what happened. And then after they all left, Gaz goes to check the water. There's no hot water. So it sounds like there was all silt or shaly stuff in the bottom of the tank, and in the process of moving them all, it's got it all stirred up. There was a little inline filter in the pipe that brings the hot water into the house. Have I got this around the right way? Yeah. Have I? Yeah. It had blocked that little filter, so we had no water. So we had to ring them again, say, boys, hopefully you're still up the road, which they were. They were working on a house about 7 doors up, which is the same builder as ours. So down they all came again. They had to pull all the pipes off, clean this little filter. Bingo, we had water. Don't stitch down that far, girl, because I might smush up that corner. I might just leave that loose. All right, so it's just been a palaver, absolute palaver. All right, where's my little birds? That will work in there, and if I smoosh up this corner, what will that look like? It still can happen if that fabric, because if that comes up, then I can potentially collage more flowers into that bottom corner, like so. And little birdie will be tucked in. So I'm going to continue with the gluing in there. Yeah, okay, just thinking, guys, just planning and thinking. Now, you can use PVA glue, you can use all sorts of mediums that are on the market. Just stay away from plasticky ones that will make it hard for you to push a needle through. But would be my advice, because you don't want to put pressure on your fingers. I've used this heaps of times and stitched through it, and it works a treat. And just take your time. If you're worried that you can't get your glue exactly where you need, you could probably put a pen line like your ink erasable pen, just to give you a bit of an idea of where your edges are. And just bit by bit, work down. Then let it dry. My recommendation is overnight. I was pretty impatient with the first attempt, and it was only a few hours. It still worked. I got needle and thread through, but you could feel that there was like a coolness to it. It wasn't quite ready. So I will definitely let this sit for a day, just so we get it nice and dry. It's as simple as that. That blue dries clear. For those of you who are thinking, oh my goodness, she's got blue glue everywhere, don't be panicking. Those little bits I'm not too worried about, because I would say that it'll just become such a mush of birds and nests and stitches and oh, goodness knows. So the jury is out on whether I turn the corner up on this piece. I'm rather tempted because I have this land here that could be something that drags from over here across. It would sort of make the page feel like it's, you know, together if I could get some fussy cut images into this location. So if that went up and smooshed in there, stitched down, and then the flowers were in behind that lace, peeking around here and into this corner, I'd be thinking that would be a genius idea, if I do say so myself. Toot your own flag, girl. Horn, flag. All right, that needs to just dry. So in the meantime, I'm going to maybe fussy cut out a few little bits and pieces. I'll leave a little bit of the edging. I'm not going to worry too much about these little bits of flowers. I will leave those leaves. They can always be separated off until I know I want them gone or not. This won't be stiffened at this stage, I don't think, until I know what is going to be raised and what is not. But in the meantime, I'm just going to tidy up some of these smaller pieces so that I've got plenty at my fingertips. And when I come back in the next video, whether it'll be this piece or I'll leave that there as a bit of bulk, or the C, I'd say it'll be this one. I like to stay on a project until I've sort of got it at least settled in my mind. Okay. So I sort of feel like that could come out. I think I will. Just want to tighten up the little bits. I don't have a lot of space here, so I can't. But that in itself might be a handy little element to drag in. So let's just leave that. Let's trim this little guy down. Now he is very white, so whether I come back with a little bit of tea on the paintbrush like I did that title page and just put a little bit of those tones in, I will. I don't want to dunk the whole thing in because I don't want to change the colour of this and that. So I'd rather control the tea after the fact if it looks like it's just not blending. I know I have a bigger piece of this doily where the flowers are like, you know, that big. But I've left it in the bucket over there. I don't think I need it because I just want little bits of lots of things to create, I guess, a hedge full of roses that this little nest is in. See, there's some nice trim. Gosh, you never throw anything out, do you? Do you find that? I think I'm going to break this down a little bit more. I feel confident that that's... Now, this is on fabric that might fray. So what I might do with this guy, because it's a big weave, is I might grab my art glitter glue, which has a very fine tip, and I'm going to go around its edge. Like I could put it on iron-on violin as well, but that iron-on violin, or those iron-on products that you would use typically for appliquing and things like that, I'm not a fan of them anymore because they are pressure on my joints when I'm stitching. So what I've tend to do is use a very fine drizzle of glue on the very edge of fabrics that could fray. I'll still stitch this down with an overcast stitch right around its perimeter, but even just handling your piece when you're stitching, it can start to disintegrate. There is a bit of sizing, or I guess the industry word for starch, glue, whatever it is, sizing, I'm not 100% sure, in this. But you can see that that quickly would come apart. So what I'm going to do, this is just prepping elements for the piece. If I don't use all these, doesn't matter. They'll go into the stash. They're all part of the colour palette for this piece. They're prepped and they're ready to go. So this is art glitter glue. Art glitter is its name. And it's great for just putting a little drizzle on edges of fabric that possibly might fray on you. Now, if I knew where this piece was going, I could literally stick it down and this glue would also hold it, but I don't. Not yet. It's the next video. I've been meaning to do a video of just, you know, fussy cut elements that can be prepped like this in a container, ready to go. But I've held off doing it because, you know, sometimes you don't want them as tightly cut down as this. Sometimes you might want a bit of lace that is attached to it. And so I sort of said, no, don't do that, because you can guarantee, see how that's now got a little edge? I can just move that to the side. No, it's not going to slide. Let's just do that. I'm going to bring this linen in and just give it a little. I guess I could do this to the leaves that I want to be three-dimensional around the nest. But I think I will use an iron-on product. Oh, come on. And just this stuff dries so quick. It was great in paper crafting because you could adhere something and move on instantaneously. There are a lot of nasty warnings on that bottle. So if you don't want nasty stuff in your life, I totally get it. Don't bother buying it. Because, yeah, there's some health warnings that, yeah, I try and not get it on me, put it that way. I'd say it's the compound that makes it, you know, set instantly. Oh, my tummy's rumbling. I hope you can't hear that. So those two can just dry. That's dry. You can see the blue is disappearing already. What else do we have? Another one of these. How are we going for time? Oh, we're up. Just cut out another one of these. Now, sometimes I don't mind if it's a bit frayy too. It sort of adds interest to your piece. And even, you know, I might find that I still then need to come back in and embroider some more elements in, sort of using the Jennifer Clouston style of embroidery to thicken up my foliage, or, you know, who knows where it will end up going. You could, if you had some napkins that had some gorgeous imagery on them, you could glue them onto some fabric and then maybe in a little hoop embroider into it, then fussy cut it out. So to create some little elements that is based on some gorgeous napkins that you found. You might find some cherry blossoms, or what were they, crab apple tree blossoms. And there's another little one that could do with. Oh, so you've got to put the pin back into, otherwise it sets. So this video, there's a lot of prep, a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, like getting it ready. Now this here. I think they're going to go onto Violin. I just don't know if I'll get those flowers in. Maybe I'll, look, I'm going to cut him out. I'll come back a bit from those leaves. But I'll go tight to the flower because he will be an actual element in there somewhere, even if he's in the background, or, you know, look, at the end of the day I might not even use him too. We'll see. Got an awful lot going in a very small space, like usual. Just another rose. I'll come tight in around you. I think I'm going to detach. I'm taking a punt that that's an element in the back somewhere. You know, it could be anywhere. It could be up into here, it could be up into there. It's just an element. And this here will be a piece that I put on some, maybe, oh, I don't know. There's heaps of leaves. No, I'm not going to. I'm going to cut it out tight, as in fussy cut it out properly as part of these pieces. And then once I get my nest, that's what I'm going to do. Once I get my nest into position and made, I'll then go back to these fabrics looking for leaves to bring in, because at the end of the day I might just need a couple of those broken down into little elements. Yeah, the 3-dimensional leaves will be the last step with the nest. That's how we're going to do it. We're focused on the background. Does that make sense? So what I might do is separate that there, get rid of all that in there. Element. See how that could be stiffened. But for now, it's setting the tone for the leaves. And once again, just to protect that fabric, because I can see it would disintegrate quite quickly, is I'm just going to protect those edges with a little bit of move that over there. Oh, my tummy's rumbling. What am I going to have for breakfast? You know what I've been craving lately is a toasted sandwich. They're never as good as what you imagine when you make them, but just toasted ham, cheese, tomato sandwich. Haven't had one for ages. Now you'll all be going, that'd be nice. You know when someone plants an idea? Okay. There we go. And this one. I'd love to start collaging now, but the napkin's not dry, girl. Okay. The other thing I could consider doing is lost a leaf. So we might leave it at that, but I will need more, is put the glue away. Put these where they can dry, and then they're ready for a rainy day when we play again. Is have a think about my background too in the meantime, as in the stitching. So, it's still tacky. Maybe I'll do some running stitch as my homework. So where's my crochet cotton? Just a heap of running stitch through. Sneak it a little bit into the birds, a little bit through there. I think I might get glue on my fingers. Or do I leave it and maybe seed stitch in wherever the flowers don't fit? Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to do the running stitch. I'll seed stitch in, I think. It just helps. Where's my journal? Like seed stitch. Do all that. Because I could do all that effort into running stitch and I only see a little bit up through the top here. And that's before I've even worked in bits of lace and see all the seed stitch. Yeah, okay. I think we've got a plan, guys. Well, I might toddle off. I think I've got enough elements at least started, and I'll come back in another video and we'll build the composition of it. I just so want to do it now, but that needs to dry. You see how quickly that has dried, but it's not dry, Corrine. Leave it alone. All right. Okay, guys, look after yourselves, and I'll catch you in another video when we start building our scene. All right, guys, bye.